No!
Good morning. Welcome back to Veteran Revivals. I'm Art, your veteran idiot. This here is Earl. We'll get into him in just a moment. But what I wanted to say was, as you know, we teamed up with Super Clean and we've talked it over and we want to give back to you guys. So, if you comment in this video, one of you will be randomly chosen and Super Clean is going to send you out some free products. Not a gimmick. Free. Comment, free products. Yours. Super Clean. You're welcome. So you've got from now until November 7th to comment down below. We'll randomly pick one of you guys and send out that stuff. So thank you again, Super Clean. Your products are amazing, and thank you for working with us and sending out some free stuff to my guys. And girls. There's some girls in there. I saw them. Okay, now let's get back to this guy. As I've said, this is Earl. He's my 1966 flatbed, if you're not familiar with him. We took a motorhome. Really junky motorhome. It was probably a meth lab. You can check out that video. It's in my playlist. And we stole the engine out of it. It's not the right word to use. Don't call the cops on me. We didn't steal the engine. I yanked the engine out after I purchased the meth lab motorhome. And then we took the engine and we tossed it in here. So it's a 1986 460 with the smog heads. But we changed out the intake manifold. I put a Hawaiian Stealth on there, and it's got a Sniper 2. That's just about where it ends for the performance on the engine itself. We did do a disc brake conversion on this in one of the latest episodes. You can check that out as well. But it is, for the most part, basically a stock engine, and it's been through 2 power tours, and I drive this thing everywhere, super reliable. So what better thing to do for it than to tear it down and throw some heads on it that may or may not work with what we going on. Let me explain. So I picked up some heads, and I'll show you those in a minute. Yes, it is Wildberry. I didn't go back. I had some left over. Thanks for noticing. Picked up some heads that are going to make this a high compression engine. But I have a stock cam down in here, and so duration's probably like 190 something, I think, is what we're at. Now I'll explain here in a little bit what the actual numbers are, but if anybody knows anything about high compression and very low duration, you get a lot of dynamic compression. More squeeze for a longer period of time, and that can be bad in a couple different ways, but so that's what we're looking at. But I'm gonna throw the heads on, and we're gonna hope for the best. So let's get this thing in the shop and we'll talk more about it. Alright, so let's all take this in. This is the before high compression heads start. See if we can tell a difference at the end. He liked it. Alright, let's get this in the shop. Okay, so let's get down into the meat and potatoes, and let me introduce you to my little unicorn find. I alluded to this 3 or 4 videos ago, but now I'm really excited to tell you exactly what we got going on here. Shout out to Super Clean for helping me clean this head. You the real MVP. So this here is a head that is specific to 1 year. The research that I could find, this was 1969. That's it. No other years. So this is a C9VE TAC A head. And what that means to you guys is that it's a high compression head. Similar to the Dove head, except for prior to that. This head specifically was only made for a year, and the difference between this and the Dove, I believe, is the crossover, or the exhaust. And this one is a closed chamber head, whereas the rest are open chamber. Anywho, this one is a unicorn. Since they only made it for 1 year, everybody seeks out the Dove heads. And so there's way more of them than there are the C9VE heads. And so finding these, it's not necessarily better than the Dove head. They're equivalent to the Dove head, basically the same thing. But it's a unicorn to me because there are very, very few of them. And I ended up finding one. Granted, I was looking for a dove head, but that's just because they were popular, not because it was any better. So this is a 75cc chamber. It's going to be very shallow. It's a very shallow chamber. Don't worry, I'm going to clean this up with a wire brush and we're going to lap these valves. But the heads that are on the truck are a deeper chamber, and I believe they're 97cc, somewhere around there. But that reduces your compression significantly. So by taking these heads and placing them on this engine prior, this is a smog engine prior. So we're going to take these heads, put it on this engine. If this has flat top pistons, the deck height is 0, pistons come all the way to the top, then the compression on this should be somewhere in the neighborhood of 11-1.
What?
Thus the scare for the cam. And let me explain that. So we're dealing at that point with something called dynamic compression. And so the piston is coming up on a compression stroke and the intake valve is closing at that time. And if you have a very short duration is closing early, it's that much more volume that the piston is compressing. So I'm trying to think of a good way of explaining this, but basically you're compressing more air. And so that dynamic compression is where it can get you in trouble. And what we have here in our pile of goodies is I have a gasket kit, and the head gaskets on this compressed to 40,000. And why that matters is the thicker the head gasket, the more volume we can have in the chamber can cause a knock. And so we don't want to knock. We'll have to run really high octane if there is an issue with the dynamic compression and all that business. But if the piston is all the way at the top, flush with the head, then our quench is 40,000. That's a safe number to get away from a knock. And so if our piston is down 10 in the hole and we've got 40,000 for the head gaskets, we're going to increase that quench and find ourselves in more trouble with a possible knock. It seems kind of backwards, but the issue is if you don't have a lot of squeeze with high compression, then you end up with pre-ignition and knock. And so we're trying to avoid that. I know it's counterintuitive. I've got people explaining this to me and I've looked up everything. And like I said, I'm not an engine builder, so I'm really coming at this with a certain level of naivety.
What?
Is that a word? I think it's a word. I'm smart.
Not true.
Don't worry. So we'll walk all through this again if I've lost some of you. But our issue is going to be that we're going to be high compression with a stock cam, which can produce an issue with knock. And so what we're going to try and do is we're going to try and make the quench really tight, the squeeze really tight, and that gets everything up into the center of the head for delaying the ignition and increasing the octane to try and get away from that, and we'll mess with the timing as well. Right now it's full of 91. Seeing what it sounds like when we first started up is whether or not we add a bottle of octane booster, try and get it 93, somewhere around there. But first thing we need to do with all of this is that I need to get the timing off of here first. That way we can pre-adjust before we start this thing up and we don't run into an immediate knock or an issue. I'm not changing the cam like we talked about before, but I am changing to a roller rocker. Nice. Not dual roller. It's just a single roller on the valve stem because I'm broke. You know, that stuff costs money. And I wanted to save some room in the budget in case we had to buy a cam, which I really, really hope we don't have to. But I also got a push rod checker because I'm fairly certain our push rods are going to be a completely different length. And I didn't order them yet for that specific reason. We also got a timing chain and gears because every time you open this up, you should at least probably replace that. But also this is the stock timing chain and gears, so they are going to be 4 degrees advanced. And by putting in this adjustable timing gears and chain, I can make it straight up, get rid of that advance, and hopefully reduce the chances of knock that way as well. So we're trying to do it in a manner that we can make this cam work without going and spending $1,200 on a roller cam and lifters and whole new set of push rods and all that other business. But we're going to give it a try, and we are going to give it our best try, shall we say, to make this a high compression, cheap build without, you know exactly what I mean. So let's get the timing off of this thing, and then we'll start dressing these heads. Fire in the hole. We're gonna pop off the vacuum here and take a look where we're at. We're about 12 degrees at idle, and like I said, that doesn't really matter. Man, it's really hard to see those numbers. Shut it off, see if I can get those numbers more visible. All right, those are marked. Let's try again. So again, it's sitting around 15 maybe? It's hard to tell. Now my light's reflecting off of the Sharpie mark. Cool, 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 cool. So we're sitting just about, let's call it 14, 13, somewhere around in there at idle. That's not advancing. There it goes. Distributor's sticking. You see now it's hanging at 20 and not dropping back down. So we got something funky going on inside the distributor. But it only advances to 20. It's not dropping back. Now it's up to 30. 28. So I think the weights are sticking or something's going on with that. So 30 is where it's coming up. So we'll back it off some. Bees in the trap. A bee's in the trap. All right. See what we can't screw up. So it settles. We're going to take it down to like 10 there. Let's see where that gets us for our advance. I did not like that sound, whatever that sound was. I'm going to have to pull this distributor out, clean it up. It does not want to come off the timing. But we turned it down some. I really don't know what that sound was, but it wasn't a good sound. Alright, let's shut it off. Let it try and cool down some before we have to start tearing all this apart. Thankfully, we've got some time. We're going to be lapping these valves. That should give it the cool down it needs. Let's take a wire brush in here and clean all of this up. And then we'll start pulling these valves out. Alright, start pulling these valves. Yeah! One of the studs is missing. That's alright, we're not using those because those are 3/8 and we have 7/16 sitting right over there. Boop! Oh, come on. Might have to give this one a little rappity-tappity. The tip-tap-tip, tip-tap. There she goes. Come on. Other one. Oh, whew. Okay, that's one. Only 75 to go. Decent-ish shape. Now, question is, are these upgraded valve seals, or they are the factory ones, which would suck if they're the O-ring style? Valve looks good. So these, I don't know if you can see that. Nice little Ford stamp on there. These are the factory valves from 1969. Factory. Still looks to be in good shape. There's a bunch of gunk around the outside, but there's no pitting or anything else on the seat, so we'll just do a quick lap and then slap them back in there. Beautiful. Yes. Boop. Valves are all out. Cleaned them all up. It actually says Fomoco on the valve, not Ford. I was wrong. I'm an idiot. You guys know this. No surprise. Anyways, also, happy little surprise number 1235. It's got bronze guides. Nice. It's always a good thing to find stuff like that. I got these heads for 350 or 400. I can't remember if I talked them down or not. Anyways, Dove heads, all day long, 1,200 bucks. Most likely needed rebuilt and everything else. These heads have already been upgraded. They have the snap-on valve seals rather than the O-ring. That was a super good find, excited. And it also has bronze guides. Sweet. Let's get back to it. I rolled out all the valves so they're all straight. Everything looks good. This head is just going to get sprayed real quick with some paint, and then we'll put it back together, and it's ready to slap on once we get the other one done. I step outside and I take a deep breath and I get real high. I'm so glad I started eating healthy again. I feel so much better. But anyways, this head is all done. Valves are lapped, new seals on. I'm gonna have to order in some other seals because the way that they did these guides, only the exhaust seals fit on these valves. So I gotta get some more. I threw the poly locks on the studs so the threads wouldn't get screwed up when we're moving it around, just in case. So this is ready to go on. And the reason I'm only doing one right this moment is because I want to get this off, put the new head on, and be able to check the valve or the push rod length so I can order those up and have them here pretty soon. Because I don't have those here, and it's going to be kind of hard to finish this project without them. So that's why we're rushing one side. Yeah. All right, it's time to start tearing this thing apart. Some of you are probably wondering, why did you set the timing before you took it all apart? Well, I was going to mark the inside of the distributor and everything else like that. And I keep forgetting the distributor's got to completely come out for this intake manifold, so it was all for naught. However, I do have a good idea where it sits now, and then we can deal with it later and get us where we want. And it would not have found out that the weights inside the distributor are hanging if I had not done that. So it was for a reason, I guess. However, now we got to tear all this apart, waste a bunch of coolant, but I'm told it's going to be worth it. That's what I'm hanging on to. That's what I have to hang on to now. Wee, 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 wee. Oh yeah, we all know that's gonna take forever to drain, so might as well start now. Why, oh, you are hating on my energy.
Oh, hey, why you hating on my energy?
girl. Let's see if I can do this without breaking plug wires this time, in case you missed it on one of the previous episodes. I ripped out one of the wires. Yeah, it was a good time. Yeah. I also got new plugs for this. These plugs, been through a couple of hot rod power tours, been through a couple of tune changes, just needs new plugs. You'll see when I get them out. Ooh, what happened there? Interesting. Wasn't me, I promise. I didn't do nothing. So give me a chance to repaint these valve covers too, since I got brake fluid all over them and they're all flaking now. Dare you. Still draining. We're about a gallon an hour. So what's interesting is I pulled the vacuum advance off of the distributor and it was running and there was no vacuum out this tube. It flows free. I don't know why we're not getting any vacuum out of that. Maybe we'll switch down to this lower one, see if we get anything out of that one. Anywho, just a weird find. Nothing to get all excited about. I'm going to use the lift to pull these heads out of here. So that's a long way to reach. My back is, well, it was abused.
That's what she said.
Oh, that's some good smelling fuel. Some high octane stuff. The good stuff. Stanky. Chamon. This is a perfect example of why trying to pull these heads off from here is going to be impossible. So. All right. Cool. And Shazam! Intake's ready to come out. So the one thing I forgot to mention about the difference between these two heads is I did mention the crossover, which doesn't matter because of this YN Stealth intake. It doesn't have a crossover to warm up the intake air temperature. However, on the back there is an EGR crossover on these heads that is not on those heads, which is super cool because that thing is ugly and it's in the way back there. So super cool to get rid of that. Let's get this intake manifold off. Yeah. Yep. Mm-hmm. Yep. Okay. All right. Cool. There's a couple things I am worried about. These manifold bolts, one of them is already snapped off back here. I'm wondering if we're gonna have issues getting those off. If they do snap off, whatever, these heads are going in the trash anyways. But yes, I'm getting headers at some point, just not right now because broke. Anyways, go buy some merchandise. That'll get me some headers for down there. This thing, this pan, I'm glad it exists because all this weepage would be going down into the engine, into the oil, but at the same time, I'm not sure I'm glad it exists, if that makes sense. Oh, come on. There we go. There she goes. Whew. But the next intake gasket is just a regular one. It's not going to have this. So, whoop. All right, there she is. Remember, folks, change your oil regularly. Isn't it beautiful? Looks fantastic. Cam looks great, of course. And none of the lifter are dead. I already went through and felt all the push rods. What we'll do now is we'll take off all the rockers and push rod and start undoing the exhaust manifold bolts. Yep. All right. Interesting noise. Okay, okay, all right. Cool. We'll get the rest of you with the hand. Okay, the ever-present, scary manifold bolts. Let's do this. Oh, it's twisting out. Oh. Oh, those are definitely gonna snap off. We're getting a slow turn, and it's gritty. It might come out. I'm not holding my breath. We're gonna get new bolts, and Annie sneezed the crap out of them. All right. Holy crap. It's coming out. Only 12D5 left to go. Sweet. Trash. Surprisingly, they all came out with 0 issues. Anywho, yeah, I know my hat's crooked. Hands are dirty. Don't want to mess up the super clean hat. Now it's just the head bolts, and then we'll pop these suckers off. We can get the engine hoist over here to lift these things off because, you know, we talked earlier about this. If you're just jumping in now, go back to the beginning and start like a real man.
Ooh, tough guy.
So there's about half as many head bolts in these heads as the 454 because they are huge head bolts. So we'll go ahead and pop off this. Let's go with passenger side first. Yeah, that's what we'll do. Come on out of there, little feller. That's a good little boy. Oh, that's okay. It's gonna wash the floor anyways. Oh no, not the hood. Whew. That was close. That's a bummer. Thought I'd be able to get it out of here like that. Okie dokie. Maybe if the hood wasn't so low. Yes, I know, I'm a little bee. But these things are freaking heavy, man. Heavy, bro. Heavy. Well, sad face is sad because all my hopes and dreams were just shattered. We got dished pistons in here. It's not the worst thing ever, but we're definitely not going to be in any compression range that is worth worrying about octane and timing and everything else. So I guess that relieves, we don't have to mess with the quench. I don't need to see what the deck height is and so on and so forth. We'll just slap some, well, I'm going to clean up these pistons for one, and then we'll slap the head gaskets on and slap these heads on. There's not a single casting number anywhere on these heads. I don't know if they're like Temu Ford heads or what, but they're not great. Not great at all. So the differences come here inside this chamber. It's 97-ish cc's in here. And you can really see how low this intake valve is inside. Now if you go over and we look at this one, the intake valve is almost flush with the deck itself. So that's the differences there. This is a much shallower chamber, and as you can see the depth of the spark plug down in there. So we will bump compression, and these heads do flow way better. It's just not going to be the compression I was hoping for. That's okay. At some point we'll have to rebuild this engine, and we'll go in and we'll put some flat tops and crank this sucker to the moon with the cam and all that business. But right now it's just going to get a little bit more rowdy. Not as rowdy as I was hoping. still a win. Those heads are going to be way better than these smog heads. All right, I'm going to get this cleaning. Use my tears to clean off some of these pistons, but it's a good day. It's a good day. Still, kind of. It's good. It's good day. It's a good day. Stop crying. So actually, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go ahead and pull the front of the engine off, the water pump, timing cover, and all that business, the crank pulley and all that, just so it's out of here, and that'll empty these water jackets and I can clean this whole thing out. Some of you agree with it, some of you won't. That's okay, because it'll all be done by the time you see this. These Gatorback belts, or the green belts, or whatever you want to call them, from Gates or whatever the business is, they're really good belts. They're just kind of squeaky. They do this ear. It's a good belt though, ish. Good enough, ish. Come on. What the? What's holding you on? Just the force of yourself? I don't feel anything else. Oh, you got one right here. How about now? Some of that made it into the bottle. Okay, not a lot of that made it in. Ugh. Sweet. Yeah, now this guy. Huh? Huh? Does appear to have the plastic timing gear. That's neat. Don't need this centric anymore. I may have to throw it back on for the bolt length. Probably not. Maybe not. Most likely not. We'll see. Probably not. I'm gonna go with no. I think it went right there is where it lines up. See, pretty sure it's 4 degrees advanced. But let's get the other timing gear and see where it lines up, and that should tell us where it is, if that makes sense. Oh, I was an idiot, and I put the washer on so I can't slide it off. Yeah. Like I said, I'm putting this at a standard position. That's what I want to do, and you can't change my mind. So there's the timing mark here. So let me bring you guys in here so I can show you what's going on. So it is top dead center right now, ish. See the timing mark on the teeth of the crank gear. See where the position of the keyway is itself, and the timing mark on the cam gear. They're lined up down through the top of that tooth, and the keyway is off to the right. So essentially what that means is that the camshaft, one moment. So essentially what that means is that our camshaft is 4 degrees retarded. And that doesn't really help us out. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go standard, and that is going to move our torque to the low end. We'll have more torque towards the low end, which is interesting that it was retarded. Maybe it was just fuel economy. They knew that it wasn't going to be running power, a high RPM, so I don't know. Who knows? Somebody that does all the Ford stuff all the time and has been doing it for 50 years can tell us what that reason is. But all I know is that that means it is 4 degrees retarded, and so we are going to go standard and get our 4 degrees back, moving the power to the low end. And that's what I want. I want power on the low end. I want to feel like I'm ripping the asphalt off of the ground. That's why I'm doing this. Just to be rumbly and very angry and violent. Yeah. It's gonna make it not so drivable. But remember, we're not getting all the compression we thought we were getting either. So I'm gonna put this on here and we'll be good to go.
It's gonna suck, but go catch it back. Bam.
Alright, let's get our checker in here. See what we get. Oop, almost forgot the ball. These are 1.7. Factory is 1.73. Oh, there's mosquitoes flying everywhere out here. Okay, I'm gonna do a little math and see where we need to be. Well, good morning. Welcome back. I had to jet right in the middle of working on this thing last night. I had a pipe explode behind the fridge. That was neat. Ripped out some drywall and sucked up gallons and thousands and gallons of... It wasn't that bad actually, but I still got a little bit of drywall on me this morning from working on it. But I need to get this thing back together and get some parts ordered. I got the tracky thing on again. So we may have lucked out. There's still mosquitoes in here. Ankles are exposed. This is a dangerous situation. So we may have lucked out. We may have the correct link push rods from the previous one. Now, I had looked this over before we even started any of this, and I was trying to figure out why they wouldn't be the same size, but everything I looked up said that they are a different size, and considering we're doing the roller rockers and so on and so forth, I didn't know if these heads had been decked or milled, and so I wasn't sure if the push rods were going to be the same. So anyways, put it all together and my calculations came out. These push rods are like 8.5 something, almost 8.6. And then did all the calculations with the lift and the rocker lift up and down the stud. And it came out to a difference of 55 thousandths. So we're going to take the original push rods and we're going to do witness marks on the valve stems and see if that's correct. If we're right in that window, they're just a little short according to the calculations, but like very, very, very minutely short. And so we're going to see if we can get away with what we got now. So anywho, let's hit this witness mark. I don't know if you can see these mosquitoes flying around in here, but they are going to find me shortly and start tearing me up. Anywho, so we're all done with this guy. Stay. What we're going to do is you're going to draw a witness mark on the top of this stem with a Sharpie, and then we will run it through the cycle and see where we're at with this. We want it to be 1/3 inside center to at least 1/3 outside center. So basically right down the middle of this, with the starting travel being 1/3 in and the ending travel being 1/3 out. All right, so we'll get us all the way down on base. I should pull these spark plugs out. This would make it a whole lot easier. All right, we're down on base there. Let me get this witness mark made. Or the Sharpie on there. And because this is a roller, I'm going to have to hold the roller still so it drags back and forth rather than rolling across it to get a better witness mark. The thing, as you guys should know, I did not put the guides in there because, well, I didn't think of it at the time. But we will replace those once we get this all measured out and all that done. So we got lash out. Now we're just going to give it a half turn. And then hold the roller and we're going to cycle through all the way up, all the way down. Definitely should have taken these spark plugs out. We'll do this a couple times. All right, let's see where we're at. It's hard to get a witness mark with rollers. Bam, dibbity bam. We're using the factory push rods. Okay, cool. Now that we got that all figured out, I'm going to go in, I'm going to put in the guide plates, and I'm going to start throwing that old side of the valve train together, and we'll get this other head off and start working on that. I'm getting tore up in here. Can't have cool weather without mosquitoes, apparently. It's just a trade-off of things. You've got so hot you can't hardly breathe, cools down, mosquitoes, cold, hands cold, mosquitoes, hot, mosquitoes, cold, mosquito. Anyways, it's gonna be a good day. Let's get the rest of this put back together so I can get back in there and suck up all the water out of the carpet. All right, man, we're getting down to it, trying to rush through everything, but we're getting it done. This head is ready to go in. I just got to scrape some paint off the gasket areas, and that can drop right in. We're waiting for that paint to tack up. Let's go ahead and start cleaning up all this crap. The timing cover, get the gaskets off of that, and clean the valve covers and the water pump, all that business. Yay! We're getting there. We're getting there. Down, down, slowly. Even slower this time. Thanks. Oh. All right, go down, but now. Bam! I don't know if you heard it go. That meant that it was in, is what that meant. Later, nerd. Don't scratch my truck. All the bolts in there. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Adorable.
My back is hating me from leaning over this thing. I see you, mosquito. Stay away. I'm just gonna run around with a can of brake clean and a lighter here in a minute. Bam. Oh, my back. It's wrecked. Well, I suppose it's time to put all the rest of the front of this on. Really, it's time for a beer in the Sunscan, but responsibilities say that I should put the timing cover on in the water pump. Shooping doopy doo bop, doopy doo wop, yeah. So we're doing this. Let me explain a little bit what I was talking about with Quench. So Quench basically takes into account you're trying to figure out dynamic compression. And so with Quench,
It's based on how deep the piston is in the cylinder. If it comes all the way flush with the top of the deck, then it would be a 0. And if it was a 10 thou away from it, it'd be 10 thou, so on and so forth. And then the thickness of the gasket, this one in particular is 40,000. And so to try and avoid detonation in high compression, you're going to want your quench to be somewhere in the neighborhood of like 35, 45,000 thousandths. And if you start getting a larger gap than that, say I have this, like for instance, the pistons come all the way to the top, so it's 0, and the gasket is 40,000, so I would have been at 40,000, I would have been good to run high compression, or safer to run high compression. The issue is when that quench is too high, it reduces the amount of compression and causes detonation earlier. I'm still figuring all this stuff out, but from what I understand, then you would increase the octane of the fuel for a slower burn and reduce the amount of timing to avoid knock, unless you ran race gas, and then you'd fiddle with the timing a little bit more, as far as I know. Anyways, since these pistons are dished, you're reducing the amount of compression, and so we were intending to see around 11 to 1, 11 and a half to 1 in here with flat top pistons with the 40 thou quench and these 75cc heads, which with this cam, which the duration is like 195 or 197, the intake valve closes way early and that compression goes way up. And so just like doing a compression test, if we were to turn this over, it'd be like over 200 psi. The starter would have a hell of a time, and it would just be crazy amount of compression. And so we don't want that, obviously. So when we found out that there was dished pistons in here, it actually pulled a lot off the table. We're still going to be between like 9.5 to 10 to 1, but we don't have to worry so much about 93 octane or even 95 or something, higher than that. And we don't have to worry about the quench so much. We know we're good with it so far, but we're reducing the amount of compression on top of the dynamic compression and the low quick duration cam. We don't really necessarily have to mess with all that stuff anymore. So in one hand, I'm happy that I don't have to try and mess with the timing and worried about a knock initially right off the bat. Half of me is sad that it's not going to be 11 to 1 compression and sound nasty, even though it's got these manifolds on it right now. But anyways, we've retarded the cam 4 degrees. That'll help some, but I think we'll be good. 91 octane, we'll give it a shot, see how it does, but I think it should be fine with that. One thing I will say about these Summit roller rockers is that the nut itself does not like to thread onto these ARP studs. You have to kind of like turn it back and forth. It keeps wanting to lock up, and then it'll finally go on. It's a very strange thing. Like right now, this thing does not want to thread on. It don't make no good sense. It's almost like it's got 2 initial pathways, and you got to get the right one. And I'm leaning all the way over here, so my back is screaming. Oh, and this thing doesn't want to thread on. It's just a very weird situation. I don't understand it, and in reality, it's really annoying. I don't understand. Of course, the one that's hardest to get to is the one giving me so much grief. Why? See, and then it just goes right on. It's the dumbest thing ever. Really dumb. All right, I'm gonna turn it over, quarter turn, and then go back through and set the lash again. Well, make it 0 lash for all you guys that are freaking out because I said set the lash. And just keep on going. Oh! Alright, now that all the lash is out, let's go around and tighten these poly locks in. And it's the same thing with these poly locks into these cylinders. They don't want to go in, but like a very specific way. Very dumb. Summit, do better. Otherwise, quality part. Just this thread, for whatever reason, that very first thread just doesn't want to happen. It's the most annoying thing ever. And if I'm gonna have to spend 20 minutes on every single one of these, I'm writing a bad review. I'm doing it. Good evening. It is the next day evening. I had to spend the rest of the evening yesterday retapping every single one of these nuts for the rockers so I could get the the nuts on the studs and the poly locks in there. 1 out of 5 stars for Summit on this rocker set. Rockers, great. Those nuts and poly locks, trash. It looks like they were cut twice in 2 different patterns, and it just real pain. Anyways, I got it all put back together. Didn't want that all on camera because I was probably swearing the entire time, but it's all put together. The preload is all done, and it's ready for this timing cover to come on. I didn't work on it at all today because I wasn't expecting to work on this for 3 days straight. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to throw this timing cover on, the water pump, and the intake manifold. I want to leave the valve covers off for the first start just to see how it goes. We'll get the timing cover and water pump on, and then I'm going to prime the oil and after I change it with my little tool over here through the pump rod, distributor pump rod or shaft, whatever you want to call it, any of those things. Listen, I'm trying to rush right now. And that way we got some good oil up at the top before we turn this thing over. Let's get a little goop down the corners here, and a little goop, and a little goop, and a little poop, and shoo-doo-doo-doo. Ah. These paper gaskets, super pain at getting things lined up and put in, if I don't say so myself. Super duper, Gary Cooper. Let's get this guy in here, line up that timing cover. Now the bolts that come up from the bottom are gonna be the difficult ones. Don't hit the radiator, don't hit the radiator, don't hit the radiator, don't hit the radiator. Stop hitting the radiator. My little buddy out there cheers me on in difficult situations. At least I think he's cheering me on. Might maybe not be, but still. Is this going in? They ain't reaching nothing. Nada. I don't understand. Yeah. Alright, now that all that is on, let's go ahead and prime this guy. Other way, guys. Coming up through the lifters. Now we're seeing it at the rockers. Just one more here. Those have all got oil. Bam. There we go. Woo! Got a little air bubble in there. Shazam! Sweet. Now we can intake manifold. Yep. Hardest part about this intake manifold isn't that it's heavy, it's getting this nipple into this water jacket without disturbing the gasket below it. That is legit the hardest thing about this. And it looks like we did pretty good. We'll get the upper downers cinched in first, and then the side to sides. All right, we're gonna do the valve covers because I'm pretty confident everything's gonna be all right under here, and it's gonna squirt oil. I can already tell by the way it shot a little bit out of there. It is gonna literally shoot it out the top. So let's do the valve covers and then all the rest of the bolt-ons. I guess we can fill in this hole here. I gotta put the balancer on so I know where TDC is. All right, we are 10 degrees before top dead center. Let's see if we can get this pump shaft to work with us. It seems to actuate smoothly. We're gonna pull this off though and make sure everything is, because it was not actuating smoothly when we were messing with it, if you remember. See what that gets us. more maybe? Come on. You're almost there. Woo! That is not something we want to drop down in there. Bam! There we go. Ow, Martha Faulkner. So I got markings on this distributor here, but we'll leave it as is for a second. Get these valve covers on. Oh, girl. Don't drop down the... Worst feeling ever if you drop one of these suckers down there. All that work. Chances of you fishing that sucker out with a magnet, slim. Me and this bar, none. Boop. Beautiful. It's beautiful. It's the most beautiful thing you've ever seen. Oh. Lefty loosey, righty tighty. Gentlemen and ladies. Or lady. I think there's only one of you that watch me. Come on, don't play with me. Oh! We're okay. We're good. We might not be okay, but we're good. Throw a little blue monster on that as well. Well. Come on, hook. Oh, man. That thing is just gonna be, one of those things, you know? It's just gonna be there. Got moving too quick. I knew there was a reason I was trying to loosen that. Yeah. You guys just gotta trust me sometimes, you know? Oh. Got double whammied on that one. Shazam! And click. All right. All right, so we have reached the point where it's time to fill this thing up with coolant and fire it off. But that's not gonna happen in this episode. Stay tuned for the next episode when we go through all of that. Stop groaning, it's late. I'm sending out a video so you guys will be updated. Just stick around for the next episode when we fire it up and see if it blows up. runs just fine. And we'll go through the tune and everything else and see exactly how this thing does with the new high compression heads on it. New 50 years old high compression heads. All right. Make sure you check out the merchandise. Links in the description. Like, comment, and subscribe. Share with all your friends. And as always, have fun. I need ibuprofen and a lot of it.